Not very long after I had the idea for the couches that made us, I realized through talking to others, as well as what I knew about him myself, that Levi Jones was someone I was going to have sit down on the couch and tell us his story. The 7-time USAC national champion, former leader of that legendary brand of sprint car racing, and current general manager of the Eldora Speedway personifies exactly what this interview series is all about. From staying inside guest rooms to guest houses, and even in between a couple sprint car top wings in a shop mezzanine, Jones jokes that even today he's still a guest inside someone else's house. A little while ago, Levi sat down and gave me a whole bunch of time inside the Eldora Speedway Media Center, where he told some stories that brought a smile to his face and to mine, all while dropping some serious wisdom, like a lot more of our lives in racing is lived outside of the pit gate than it is inside of it. And that matters a whole lot when it comes down to the people you're living that life with. So now, here to tell us about the couches that made him, Levi Jones. You run this place now. How cool is that? How cool's that been?
I mean, really, there's nothing cooler, right? As a kid growing up, a sprint car fanatic, and then getting to do it, you're right, coming here your first time. I wasn't Kyle Larson. I didn't come here to win my first time. I didn't make the race first time. It's like, how in the hell am I going to run that close to the wall? How does Dave Darland do that? Right. So just, 10-year overnight success story racing here, and then, getting to come here and work and work with, we have 8 full-time people here, just people that love it. We're here trying to make it better every day. It's awesome.
10-year overnight sensation. That's actually how I describe myself to some people. Although I think you're a little bit more of a sensation with everything you've done in just the driving part of your life, and then now the post-racing, the post-competing part of your career. People may or may not know watching this, because the goal is to touch a bunch of different worlds or parts of the world of motorsports, that you took a little bit of a break. You stepped away from dirt track racing after leaving USAC, and I think that was, 2021? I remember you told Christy and I leaving Hobstadt one night that you were offered a position at IndyCar. So what were you over there, 2022 and 23?
Yeah, so I was at IndyCar 3 full seasons. Started October of 21, so did the full 22, 23, 24 at IndyCar. Incredible. I tell a lot of people it was almost like, I didn't go to, I went to college for a few weeks, but, that was almost like, I feel like what grad school would be like, right? What I've had done in racing up to that point, and working with tremendous people and facilities and promoters and sponsors and teams. It just, all great people, great organization. But, when Tony Stewart and Brett Frood reach out again about, hey, have you thought about Eldora anymore? Because, not a lot of people know, but I did talk to them, but shortly after I went to work at IndyCar. I even told Jay Fry when they reached out back then, right, early 22 early 22. So was happy where I was at. He reached out again, and Eldora, for a dirt kid, Eldora is the mecca.
Yeah, I've watched a few interviews. I know you sat down with Lanny Nichols and Richie Murray and Devin at USAC put together a really cool deal. I think it was all centered around your Hall of Fame induction into the United States Auto Club. And so there's material out there about you, but there's not a lot. And I don't know if that's by choice or if that's just by availability or what, but you've had a storied career, 7 driving championships with USAC, 2 Silver Crown, 5 sprint car championships, and then your stint in IndyCar. You run USAC, the circle track division, really, really well for quite a few years. You step aside, you go to IndyCar for a little bit, really involved in like the Indy Lights, Indy Next program. I think your main task there was developing a next generation of the Indy Next car. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Coming back there with Roger Penske buying Indianapolis Motor Speedway and IndyCar and IMS Productions, Dan Anderson's group had ran the Indy Lights program. So Roger taking that back in. So I wasn't coming in, taking somebody's job. It was in addition to what IndyCar was doing, bringing Indy Lights back in house. So was in charge of that. Kind of just hey, we don't have enough. We need more cars racing. How do we get more cars? So it was like, hey, I'm a short track guy. We need to get 22 cars. How do we get 22 cars to run the race? Just working with each team. a lot of those teams had a lot of history in Indy Lights, so they were passionate about it. The drivers from all over the world, they want to come there, they want to learn, they would try to excel and get a seat in IndyCar and run the Indy 500. And it was fun, it was successful, and it was a tough decision, right? When Roger Penske picks you up in his plane and flies you to Detroit to have a conversation like this, I was just, open with him. I shared why, right? Praying about it, talking to my family about it, and ultimately making the decision, like, telling Roger Penske that, we're not talking about what it takes to keep me here, just that, I've made the decision to come to Eldora and lead the ship over here.
That's got to be such an intimidating moment. And you've talked to me a little bit about that going up to Detroit to talk with him, but he's easily the most successful name in motorsports in America, I'd argue the world. And for the guy that now owns the IndyCar series, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, IMS Productions, for you to look him in the face and go, hey, thanks, but no thanks. I think that speaks to how much this place really, truly pulls on your heartstrings.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a position here that, I have the tools I need, I think, to be successful. I couldn't have more respect for Roger Penske. It kind of surprised me how open I was able to be with him.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I think that's why he's successful. If I'd text him at 6 a.m. or 11 p.m., he's there. He's getting after it. He's working. He's doing it. He's trying to make everything he does better, and I appreciate that and respect it.
But also, it's not too tough of a sell to a guy like him, because if I remember the story right that he told us at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway during the drivers' meeting for the 2021 BC 39, he kind of fell in love with dirt track racing when he was a kid and was sneaking into the midget races. Yeah. I want to say out here in Ohio, but I know he's from Detroit. I'm probably mixing up details of that story, but he's a lover of all racing, so surely it wasn't too hard of a sell to get him to see why you wanted to come back to this place.
No, exactly. He understood that, right? He gets it. He got bit by the same bug that all of us get bit by in racing, right, at a young age, and he loves it, and he goes, I know, right? I know you're a dirt guy. I get it, but so that part of it, it's part of the journey, right?
Yeah.
You have to enjoy the journey, and things are going well here, and we're excited for 2026.
Well, man, you're a segue machine, and you get right to the meat of why we're sitting here talking today, which, again, I really do appreciate the time. I know it's the off season at Eldora and for all of us in sprint car racing, but you're busy. You're not the only one out here. You guys are all working. Jonathan Bateman and the rest of your staff are getting this place ready, which hats off to you to just not go, oh, hey, things are good, we're going to just keep status quo and go into 26 and 27 and so on. You and your group are constantly improving this place, and that's something that dirt fans definitely take notice to, whether it's late models, whether it's the Dirt Track World Championships or sprint car racing, wing, non-wing, whatever. You guys take super good care and place, I feel like, the fans first, racers 1A, and that's what makes this place what it is. So in the tone of the segue you just set up so well is the journey. You got to enjoy the journey. You're here at Eldora Speedway as the track's general manager, head promoter. Do you like that title, promoter of Eldora Speedway?
Titles of, I guess, probably just the way I've been brought up. Title doesn't mean anything,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, we're whatever it is. If if something breaks right now, we become the janitor or the plumber if we have to. So, and I think that the whole group around here, that's the mentality of it, right? We're trying to get the job done.
Yeah.
Being I guess the general manager, and I've said that before, right? Coming to Eldora, it doesn't need Levi Jones's stamp, right? I've got to just keep it going,
Mm-hmm.
and the people that lead every department around here, I've got to help them get what they need. They got to feel comfortable to ask me what they need, make those decisions, and give them what they need to excel, whether it be, the track side, the concession side, the marketing, whatever, right? I've got to make sure that have what we need to keep this place moving up and to the right.
Well, I don't know. Of course, you worked for IndyCar for a few years, and I just got done reading a book that he was the main focus of, but you definitely sound a lot like the way Tony Holman operated the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for so long before he passed away. It's very much facility first, and everything after that, will come, whatever part of the facility. But, again, you set me up so well, so let's talk about the journey. You don't just show up to Eldora Speedway 2 years ago or 1 year ago, however long it's been now, and get handed the keys. You didn't just get called by Roger Penske out of the yellow pages.
although I think private residences are in the white pages, so that's how old phone books are and how little I know about them. You don't win 7 USAC driving championships. You don't get employed by Tony Stewart 2 different times in 2 very different roles, which that could be its whole own interview, I feel like, without walking a pretty crazy path to get here. And I know you grow up in, what would it be, southeastern Illinois? And have they ever even have they actually ran the Levi Jones race at Red Hill yet?
Yeah. Jeremy Sneed and the gang at Red Hill Raceway were able to race it last year.
They just kept running into the worst luck with weather.
Yeah. It's finally and still battled weather, right? Mm-hmm. So I love USAC Sprint Cars, right, near and dear to my heart, hometown. Great to see a bunch of Levi Jones T-shirts that were started to have some age, right? Those shirts have 15 years or something on them since they were new, but to see old family and friends and stuff that supported me when I was just hoping to make a couple left turns and go in a circle and keep it going. So that was really fun. It was cool for my kids, right, to see that and
side of your life.
Yeah. So I kind of stopped driving before they could ever remember me racing. So but I have had that discussion with them, like Crew, my oldest boy, he since we've been here, he thinks he can be a race car driver, which I don't know about that, but he's looking at stuff like, oh, could we get a micro or this modified or what? I'm like, dude, do you think I just landed at TSR and won the right? It's a whole, the commitment of time that my family put in and the economics part of it, the money of putting into it. So, there's so much, right? I do know a little bit about the whole book of it. So
truly,
it's trying to talk to Crew at 14 or 15. He doesn't want to hear all that.
No, of course not. It's you don't want to hear about the hard or the things that might get in your way. You just want to see the opportunity, which God bless him for.
When you ask me about doing this, right, you start thinking about all, the whole journey and the ups and downs and, wanting to throw in the towel. And why am I doing this? I'm just going to go to school. But something inside of me just kept pushing me to, because I wanted it so bad. I've got to figure out a way to do it. And luckily I did. And I love that.
Well, and so again, great jumping off point. You should probably be running this interview.
I can't do that.
So you talk about like something inside you, and no doubt to be successful in this world, I think to be successful in the world, you have to have just a high level of motivation to just go out and get stuff done, no matter who's watching, what it pays, what's on the line. If you want something done, you got to go out there and do it. And that certainly is the case for being a sprint car racer, getting to IndyCar, running the Eldora Speedway. All of those things take a strong sense of initiative and self-motivation. But I would also argue, and this is the point of why you're sitting on this $38 inflatable couch, is it wasn't just something inside of you, it was people around you that kept you moving. And so we're talking about the people that extended a hand to you and the couches and the guest rooms and the shop mezzanines that you occupied. But I think one of the craziest parts of your story is going all the way back to the first bedroom that you tried to get out of and the first home you to the eyes of the legal system were trying to escape. You get emancipated at 16 years old. And, I'm no legal scholar, but essentially that means that you were stepping out from underneath the legal guardianship of your parents so that you could race a 410 non-wing sprint car in the tri-state area and just in the region with USAC, with weekly shows, so you could begin your career as a race car driver, because you couldn't do it at 16. You had to wait till 18. So you and your parents, who, if I heard the story correctly, went to high school with the judge in your county, they graduated with them, so they're able to kind of fast track you getting legally removed from them and make decisions for yourself, and you're racing sprint cars at 16 years old.
Yeah, it is pretty incredible. I'm old enough to know that, or to be a part of that era where that's what you had to do, right? I mean, so I think about working at USAC, right? I mean, dads wanting their kids to be able to race sprint cars and midgets at 12 or 13, and we all know Jeff Gordon did it.
Mm-hmm.
There's not very many Jeff Gordons, right? So my kids still say there's guys that are too old that we should not let race anymore, but that's a whole nother, So going back to when I was turning 16, right? We're from Olney, Illinois. We have a sprint car. They're racing, right? They're going to race USAC sprint cars at Red Hill, right? So, well, what do you mean we can't? I thought you had to be 16. No, you've got to be 18. My dad calls Johnny Caples at USAC office, and Johnny's telling him, well, it's a process. The attorney has to, we'll send you the paperwork, and you have to, go before the judge. And,
So there were channels to make this happen.
Yeah, there were channels to make it a lot. Right in that era, Billy Peterball won when he was 16 at Red Hill the year before. The youngest before, but then it's changed over the years. But still, you had to, at that time, you had to go through that process. I remember thinking, wait, my mom and dad can kick my ass out of the house? Like, I, pays $275 for last at a USAC Sprint Car race. I'm gonna be living on your couch.
Yeah, that's not a rent payment.
But that thing, in the course of a couple days, my parents, we got it done, right? With Judge Dunn and Olney, an attorney, and they all went to school together, and everybody went to the high school games together and the college games and hung out at the same bar and ate at the restaurant. So like at lunch, it was handled, right? So
wow.
Got it. So remember, Johnny Caples, he had to come. He said, I've got to come and meet you guys.
Is Caples the acting president of USAC at the time?
USAC, so he's like,
okay.
Man, I've got to come meet you guys. I don't know anybody. I don't know if who you're connected with
right.
or what, but we got it done. So that was my journey. I think, my grandpa, my dad's dad, was always like, why in the hell are you doing that? Are you right? Why are you doing that with your kid? Right? It's dangerous and costs too much money. So, but I loved it. Right? And my dad and I, we worked together in the garage. He's still my best friend. When I told him coming to Eldora, he's never done anything fast in his life. Right? So they had bought a house, retired, and they'd bought a place in Indy close to us, and been there 4 years, and kind of had the conversation with my mom and dad that night, and that week, I think mom and dad had the house for sale. It was sold. The lady from Florida, well, how fast can you be out? And my dad said, well, we can be out tomorrow if my son will help me move. So did that. They came over here on their own, found a place, just about 7 or 8 miles north of here in Carthagena, next to the golf course and grain bins. So, they're loving it, right?
That's
they
cool.
love that. Eldora means a ton to them too. So, I found him a gig here. He likes to mow. Nobody else really likes to sit out there and mow, so he loves it. Right? It's really cool. So that part from him being here helping mow to that first night at Red Hill when I was 16, right? Emancipated and got to race. A lot's happened between that, and it's been a great ride.
Well, I think the best part of this story is that you and your parents, you still talk, you keep in touch. Just because you got out from underneath their legal guardianship, that wasn't the end of your relationship.
I still needed their help a lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I bet
I still do.
And I love your parents. Your mom Darva's been great to me, and Greg's one of my favorite people in the world to see at a racetrack. You say he doesn't do anything quick. That's the most accurate statement I've ever heard from you. I think that guy doesn't talk quick. The only thing he does quick, I would say, is enjoy a beer or two or three. But like, for a mom to hear that, and I don't want to get too hung up on this because it's all about the people that have helped you out, but I just think that's crazy for a mother to hear, like, yeah, he's not moving out of the house and he's not going to the other side of the world, but he's seeking to be out from underneath our legal guardianship. That's still got to be a really heavy thing for your mom to hear.
Thinking about racing out of the garage, mom lost her parking spot in the garage, right? From the time I was 15 till it was done, right? We took over the 2-car garage and raced out of there. We had a micro for a year, and then Red Hill was opening, so Dad was tired of driving all over the world to go to go-kart races and then micro races. Like, well, we'll just get a sprint car, right? I was like,
wow.
Awesome, let's go get it. We bought it from Gil and Kel Medler, who lived in West Salem, about 10 miles south of us. So we brought, I can still remember the look on my mom's face, right? We roll that sprint car in, and I'm like, nothing better, right? There's a sprint car sitting in our garage.
Yep.
And she's used to coming out and seeing the micro sitting there.
Yep.
The micro's gone. Now the sprint car's sitting in there, and she comes out the laundry room door into the garage and sees this car, and it's like,
Was this a surprise? Was she not aware you guys were taking this step?
She knew, but her family grew up going to Hobstadt and the races, but a sprint car looks like a little car out there, right? Yep. If you're in the stands or whatever. So now it's in our 2-car garage. She comes out and she's like, she had forgot how big they were.
Especially when you've been used to just seeing a micro.
Yeah, so the fear in her face, right? And then, it's still my sister. She couldn't ever watch a race. She'd be at Terre Haute or Eldora, and she's hiding behind the grandstands and can't watch. So Mom was able to watch. But that was just getting into it, right? So sprint car, and I spent way too many hours in the garage, right? All my buddies knew that, I wasn't probably not going to go out with them. If they were out jacking around, the carload would come by and they'd hang out at the garage for a while and be on their way.
That's so cool. And that's the other thing that keeps popping up in these conversations I have with people is if you get to a point where you're important enough to sit on that couch, which it's a short list, but if you get to this point where the story's worth being told, and that might sound crass because I won't tell every single person's story in racing, but I want to tell as many as I can. But if you get to this point where you're sitting on the couch and you're talking about, it's because you had to have a lot of passion. And that's the fuel that keeps everybody out here, the crew guys, the car owners, the drivers, the staff here at Eldora. It's passion's what keeps you going. So I do got to say my favorite thing I learned in learning about you a little bit more was you told Lanny this on his show that your mom used to always just look at you and go, well, hey, if you're not feeling good, just stay at the back.
She would say that when I'm racing for a championship 10 years later, right? I'm like, Mom, it's not happening. Right?
Tony Stewart's like, hey, Darva, why don't you leave my driver alone? That's hilarious.
Yeah. No, talking about the, bringing that sprint car home and being in high school and doing it, and Dad and I learning it as we go, right? I can remember, I knew that, my dad went to diesel mechanic school, and, nothing was going to fall off because I knew everything was so damn tight, nobody could get it off, right? So I can remember, right, going to the races and, Bud Kading's cars and Ed Carpenter's cars, right?
Oh, man.
Like, titanium bolts and all the cool shit. And I've got coarse thread grade 8 bolts from Real King.
You got
right
lead
on the my dad's like, I'm not buying another bolt. We got $50,000 worth of bolts in the aisle at Real King. We use a coarse thread bolt, just cut them off. Right. So, thinking about those days, and it's so cool. Right. And even in high school, I played basketball. My both sides of my family, big sports people, football, baseball, basketball. I loved it, right? Football was awesome. I loved it. I remember getting talked into playing football my freshman year because I wanted to race at Bloomington. Here's the schedule at Bloomington.
Yeah.
That's like 4
football games.
4 races that I would miss at Bloomington because we had 4 football, and, everybody, my dad and his brothers are all quarterbacks, and all state, and Darnell and David and all that. And I can still remember that first, talk to me, and we go and get our pads and the first practice. And the end, before I left, I walked back in there, and I remember Don Flowers was the coach, and I said, I'm not going to do it. I don't want to do it.
Wow.
I want to race cars. And, he is upset, right? Ultimately, my senior year, I think the football team won 1 game there. And so then sophomore year comes around, basketball, had played my freshman year, weren't very good. New coach comes in my sophomore year from Southern Illinois near DuQuoin.
Okay.
Right. Great guy. His last year coaching was he's not coaching this year at Olney, so he was there 25
wow, this
years.
is his first year not coaching?
Yeah,
oh,
so
wow.
he started that year, came in, we won 4 games. 4 games. I started as a sophomore and scored more points, I think, as a sophomore than I did as a senior.
What position?
We were all 6-foot white guys, so you played them all, right? So that sophomore year, and I remember the summer, like, he would think that I'm skipping practices or trying to get out of it. And I'm like, no, I mowed 7 lawns a week. That was $375 a week. I made mowing lawns to go racing, and I worked on my car, and we went and raced. I'm like, I'm not skipping out. If we can get back, we're going to get back, because we're going to get back. Dad's going to go to work. I'll be at basketball over the summer, whatever. But if we're racing, I'm not going to be there. So he realized that didn't look like I was going to quit racing. So he got off my ass about that. We ended up only losing 4 games or something our senior year. So, but, great guy. Learned a ton from him. Basketball coach, tough, gritty, grind it out. We're going to get it done. Bring it. So that, you think about all those. My buddies really didn't go. Not many of them. Only a couple went to the races and stuff in high school. Everybody has stuff going on. And then as I got older, right, guys started coming, right? They come to Eldora and camp. They go to Terre Haute and party, and they go follow me. So that was cool. A lot of those same guys I went to school with since I was kindergarten or grade school, all the way till the end of my career, helping me celebrate those championships.
Yeah, I bet celebrating was something you and that group were probably really good at. if they're coming to the infield at Terre Haute and partying and coming out here and camping when you're racing, celebrating that's the easy part.
My fans never lost a party. I
That's-
guarantee you that.
I hope that's on a shirt somewhere. Levi Jones doesn't lose races. His fans don't lose parties. That could be a shirt at the front gate of Eldora Speedway in 2026. I'd look into that if I were you. You can cut me in just a small amount on that. So, okay, you learn a bunch from your dad about showing up and hard work. You learn a bunch from your basketball coach about just grinding and not giving up, and all those attributes no doubt set you up for what happens next, which is you and your dad are out on the road. You're emancipated. He doesn't have to talk to you, but he still does because Greg's a great guy. And you're out on the road racing, and in his words, you just kept following around Jeff Walker.
Yeah.
And showing up and telling him, I'm going to drive for you one day. Is that true?
Yeah. So the years, right? Like 2001, I think we ran. So step back, make one step back. So Tim Engler and Tammy Engler in Princeton, Indiana, right? 40 minutes, in my 1987 S15 GMC.
Nice.
I could haul ass and make it to Tim's shop in 40 minutes.
Okay.
Through the country.
Yeah.
Make it there. So I was like a shop rat there, right? Pain in their butt, I'm sure. But, I was a sponge. I wanted to learn all I could. And the outlaw guys would come by Tim's shop. And, I can remember that winter between 2000 and 2001. Andy Hillenberg was there, right? So they were there working on stuff for the next year. And, those guys, that's who I wanted to be, right? Those were I didn't think about going to NASCAR or running the Indy 500. Like, those guys were my heroes, and those cars, right? So I can, Tim and Andy there one night, everything's done, and I'm still hanging out. I'm pretty sure I spent the night at Tim's house, slept on his couch, right, in the basement. And so I remember Andy telling me, like, hey, in his Oklahoma accent, right? If you want to be the best guy, you got to go and race against the best guys as many different tracks as you can. Because in Indiana, you could get stuck running Hobstadt or Putnamville or Bloomington, and Hobstadt was where I first fell in love with sprint cars and late models, right? They raced every Sunday night, and Andy, all those guys, it's tough, right? We still see it today. The Outlaws, wing sprint car guys or series go and race at Hobstadt. The non-wing guys are still pretty good there, right? Brady Bacon's went in there and knocked them off a couple times, and Carson Short, right? Because you have to throw it in there. He's like, I'm telling you, if you race down here every week, you're going to learn bad habits. So, Dad and I, we made a decision. We'll just go and run all the USAC races, right? And I didn't win, right? I didn't win. We did that for 4 years. I didn't win. We'd be fast time and learning how to race, right? Learning from the guys. So we did that, right? 01 going, and we didn't know where in the hell we're going. We didn't have GPS, right? Dad and I arguing I can remember going to Lakeside at one time trying to get there, right? We leave late to get to Kansas City, and we pull off the road there, and there was that little go-kart track right there off the exit where Lakeside is.
It's gone.
My dad loses it on me. Like, I'm the dumbest guy how could you, where are we at, right? We're following the Speedway directory, and he thinks I brought him to this go-kart track. I'm like, no, it's got to be here.
Keep going.
Got to keep going, turn left, it's over there. So we get there, we're late, it's 118 degrees, right? And so we're still fired up because he's still mad at me. I'm mad at him because we're late and we're right there. So we go up and we have, I remember having fast time there, so that was cool, right? Going fast. Tim always helped us. We had engines that ripped. Doing that, and then following Jeff around, Jeff and Tony, right? Their stuff looked the best, clean, neat. Tony was the ultimate professional. Jeff made him go fast. Like, hey, I remember telling those guys too, like, I want one of those rings, man. That's what I want.
That's badass.
So doing that, and finally, I think it was 02, must have been the next year. We had decided I'd went to drive the trucker's car, only ran first couple races, had issues, the motor blew, steering went out. We were supposed to go to Hobstadt, Putnamville was Saturday, Hobstadt was Sunday. So Tony they had gotten in a crash, not a bad crash at Putnamville, and went back home, and I think Tony and Cindy had something planned at the lake. So they were going, and Warsaw was like, even though we're both in Indiana, it's opposite ends of the world. Like, I don't know, it probably paid $1,200 to win at Hobstadt. And Tony's like, I'm sure he's like, long weekend, he's taking a break, he's going on the lake. Hey, that's great. Well, I'm at home
Right.
at my parents' house in bed, like, first race of the year or something at Hobstadt. I'm not even going to get a race. Why? We should have just had our own car. What the hell? I should just go back to school. So he calls my house phone, Jeff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows Walker. He's like, hey, would you want to race, or you driving anything? You want to drive at Hobstadt? I'm like, yeah. He goes, we tore it up, and Tony had said he couldn't make it, so we didn't even get the car out or anything last night, and we hung out here at the shop in the bar, and we're all just getting up. So we got to get the car out and see if it's okay. I'm like, are you kidding me? Come on, I'll call you back.
Right.
So every minute's like a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And it's taken forever. Like, yeah, I think I called the shop a few times, and finally they're like, yeah, we got it ready to go, but all of us we got to find somebody to drive this rig. So Jason Hartman shows up to the shop, just checking on him, driving by, right? He's never driven anything over than a half-ton pickup truck, I think. So they get him to drive the toter and the thing. So they said, yeah, we're coming, right? So no cell phones then. Dad and I, we go to Hobstadt. We're in the pits. And they're not there. I'm like, Walker's been pulling my leg, right? Like, joking me, right?
Well, that'd be a mean joke.
Yeah, that'd be a mean joke. Well, anyways, they're all sleeping. Hartman gets off on a wrong road, so they take a while. Well, driver's meeting starting, right? Going, and then I see their truck going by, right? So now we're getting there. So now, I'm bigger than Tony, right? So like, whatever. I don't care if my one cheek's hanging out of the seat. I'm driving this thing, right? And an incredible race. I think we were fast time and won the dash, and I lost the race. I lost the race to Eric Shively, but I think we slid each other 187 times in 25 laps. And, from that point on, Dad still owned that motor, so we were able to put a deal together with Jeff to,
run a second
car rest of the year, and that was awesome, man. I learned from the best in the sport at that time. Jeff and Kathy had the storage, the shop. They didn't have a house there by the shop, so they lived at in the office of the storage and one little side closet, which was the bedroom, right? Dave Steele had lived there.
Yeah.
For it. So I'm staying there. Then moved over to the shop, right? The mezzanine of the shop upstairs. I stayed there. Learned how to shave without a mirror in the shop because there wasn't one there. And Jeff's like, well, you don't know where your face is, right? So learned how to shave without a mirror in the shower. Worked on cars. Loved it, man. I was just a shop junkie, right? I do whatever.
I was gonna say I don't know if every single one of these guys stayed with him, but I spoke to Jeff, coming over here, and he talked about Dave Steele. He talked about Brad Sweet. He talked about Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And then most notably, Justin Grant walked a super similar path to what you're talking
absolutely. About. Justin's first race back here in Indiana, like he came back, stayed with Pat. Well, they'd call it. So I was driving for Tony. Hobstadt had a race. Wyndham is driving for Jeff. We're going to take 2 cars to Hobstadt. I'm driving the other car. They get there, and this kid from California, Justin Grant's there. He's working on my car. So I'm like, talking about like, Jeff's working on Wyndham's, and we're running, and we win the race, right?
You do.
I win the race.
Yeah.
Justin Grant's my guy.
Yeah,
right?
he's your crew chief.
Right there in Victory Lane. But, Justin was living at the shop.
Right.
Doing it, working on stuff, cleaning stuff, just, and it was so cool. Jeff's dad, Don, was around. He'd build the front ends, keep us all led in the right direction. And, so that was really fun times.
The point of this deal and why I wanted to do this and why I want to have conversation with people like you is when you live with someone, you live with them, you learn and you live and you do things with them. So no doubt, you probably pick up all this great knowledge about working on race cars and setup. Jeff told a story about how someone put in a photo of hit you in one of their cars, and it's all you in one of Jeff's cars, and it's all twisted up, and it's a photo from maybe 20 years ago, and you rattled off the setup sheet in the group text, and Jeff was like, "That's exactly right." Like that's exactly. So you learn a ton about the technical side and the competitive side of the sport. But Jeff Walker's like the first guy you're spending time with that isn't your family. And Tim Engler that you mentioned. But Does anything stand out about moments with Jeff and his wife and his family that you experienced where you were like, oh, this has nothing to do with racing? That maybe today you look back on and you go, man, I saw Jeff do that. I learned that from Jeff. And it can be anything regarding relationships, business. He had his storage units back then, and you're working with him, you're eating with him, you're traveling with him, you're living with him. You got to experience not just the racing side of his life, you got to experience probably every side of his life.
Yeah, no, that's true, right? So, this family and that family, they all become one. You do stuff together. You're working on a common goal, and you're racing cars, right? Right. It's just so much fun, and you bring up those stories, and you think about all of it outside of pulling in the pit gate, being there, racing, and leaving. Right?
Yeah,
it's also it's going to lunch and going to. Right, I mean, going to Vegas.
The racing's the smallest part.
Yeah, that's what was so cool. So, right, if we're talking about my time there with Jeff, right? So, whenever I was ended it with Jeff, right? There was a change in the sprint car world right there, right? So Jeff and Tony and all their whole team, right, had been on top of the world. They were the guys, right? They won all those every local race. Like, might as well write the check out to them. And then, that time of 03, 04, J.J. Yaley brought in, the twister cars and roll bars and, shock technology and doing stuff. And it was really hard. It was tough right there, right? So they went from winning 25 races a year and they weren't winning that many, right? So at that time, right, it was tough. And I didn't want to be the guy in between Jeff and Tony and what they're doing. It was still, Jeff Claxton's engines. We saw one of ours and doing stuff and working with John Godfrey at Stealth and everybody at Weld and, all the stuff. So it was Boston Reed had got hurt at, I think, Sprint Week at Kokomo. Damian Gardner drove Bennick's car the next night at Lawrenceburg. And then he wasn't going to do it again. So, right, right, I was one of the young kids, right? No different than today. If you're a car owner, you're looking, hey, who can get in here and gas this thing up? Do what it do, and it was we were struggling, right? It was tense, right? At Jeff's because we weren't, Tony wasn't winning as much. We were running up front. We were close, so I went to Jeff, and he was awesome. I said, Jeff, hey, I got an opportunity to drive Scott's car, the next two nights.
To wrap up Sprint Week.
Yeah, to wrap up Sprint Week. Bloomington was the first night, and then Terre Haute. And Jeff was like, absolutely, yeah, I get it. Why wouldn't you? I will do that. Thank him and Tony raced, finished that year out. And then that was, I think, him raced through 04, and then Darlin started driving in 05. But that Sprint Week, and I could have the years messed up, but 03, I drove Bennick's car and ran second at Bloomington and third at Terre Haute.
No, you're right. It was 03.
And then kind of the rest of that year bounced around. When Crosno I'd raced. Then I went and raced stuff for Glenn.
Out in California.
That's kind of the next page of my, my career of still with Jeff. My dad and I, we had a pavement car together and ran 39 on it with the points. So we're all still buddies. And I tell kids this a lot too, that, everybody I drove for up through there, I drove for them again after we stopped racing together.
Right.
Or they did something different or I did something different. We did it again. Right. So that I think that I'm proud of that. There was stuff that, Kirk Spridgen always, gives me grief about that. Like, I quit driving the BWB car setting in the parking lot here at Eldora after Lima was the night before. I trying to put myself in the best positions I felt that I needed to be for my career. And, luckily enough, it worked out. So that point of getting to through Jeff's and then driving Scott's car that year and then finishing the year out and doing stuff the next year with Glenn. Glenn, he came here for the Fort Crown this year, stayed with us in our house. He stayed on my couch this time, right? So, going to his place, his business was incredible, right? It was booming, so started racing out there. He wanted me to stay out there and run CRA, but I was so focused on getting one of those rings like Jeff and Tony.
A national
right?
championship.
That's what I wanted, right? So in the middle, we had a Silver Crown car. We did some stuff with Jim McQueen back in Indy, and Glenn was selling his business, so he couldn't be around as much. So I didn't stay out there and run sprint cars full time, but a lot of guys think I'm from California because I did go back and forth and race out there that year. Glenn and Carol were awesome to me, like second parents. Would do anything did way too much for me. I could never repay them. So that part of it. Then coming back, and I'm getting way out.
Well,
But we get to that 03, 04 time before kind of that 10-year overnight deal.
But like the thing that stands out to me about all of that, and that's all good stuff to know. And Jeff Walker, the thing I want to make sure people understand is like. And again, I'm hoping I get people from my life in sports cars and IndyCar to watch this. And sometimes what those people don't understand is like, I don't know if back then this was different, but there's not an entry fee you pay in sprint car racing. You buy your pit passes and you get in the gate. And why I'm going down this road is, well, when Jeff Walker hears you're going to step out of the car and you're going to quit running for him, that's income that he's technically losing as a car owner, because whatever that car makes with you in it, whether you win the thing or you sneak into the feature and you make start money, he gets probably the vast majority of that money. You get a small percentage as the driver. So in the middle to the end of that, what was it, 03 season, when you come to him and go like, hey, I'm going to go somewhere else, Jeff's already got all that money invested in that car, in the equipment, in the hard materials to make it go, and he can't make that money back unless it's on track, right? He's got one driver in Tony Elliott making him some money, and he's got you, and then you decide to step away. And he's extremely gracious, it sounds like, in that news that you're going to go do something different. Does that have an effect on you as a young guy, realizing like, whoa, I'm kind of altering this guy Jeff Walker's life and income and business over here, not because you were spiteful?
Yeah, I mean, when you look back at it now, right? That was 20 years ago, right? So the stuff you learn in 20 years and how you view it when you are young like that, you see it different, probably.
Oh, no doubt.
Right, you're seeing it more from your own side, which, if you were going back, you wish you could see it from 10,000 feet and what to do. But they were trying. I didn't want to come between Tony and Jeff too, right? Like, so they were trying to get their stuff back together, race the whole, the rest of that year and the next year before they went their own ways. And at that point, I'd already had, my path had shifted and was down this other path to come back and race against Jeff and Dave Darland for the championship, in 05. And that, so, I'm racing against a guy that gave me a shot, have a ton of respect for, in a car owner as Jeff, but Dave Darland as a driver, right? Arguably the greatest ever, right, in USAC. So to do that in such a short span was, it all happened so fast you don't even think about it at the time. But looking at it now, it's like, wow, how cool.
Well, I will say this. The last thing about Jeff is that, and you hit it when you talked about Tim, when you were staying with the Englers and working with them, you said you were a shop rat and you just wanted to learn everything you could. Those are when I asked Jeff about you, pretty much every time, no matter what prompt I gave him, he always answered with something along the lines of, always was paying attention, good student, very smart, wanted to learn, and he basically sang your praises as far as like, you didn't just show up and go, let me drive the thing. I'm really good. I want to do it. I want to drive. I want to compete. You wanted to know every single part about the sport. And he referenced a discussion that he's had personally with Sammy Swindell, and Sammy once told Jeff, if I only rely on my crew chief or my mechanic, I'm only as good as they are. And he thought that was a lifestyle you kind of embodied, as in, I'm not just going to let Jeff worry about all the technical and the nuts and the bolts, and I get in and worry about the gas and the brake. Did you ever look at it as like, well, I can't just let Jeff worry about it? Not that you didn't trust Jeff, but was it a just love for the sport, or were you seeking a competitive advantage by knowing as much as you could about the race cars?
Well, I go back to racing with my dad, right? I know that he wished that he had the knowledge of, what the car owners and mechanics had, right? Like, he didn't know how to square the rear end, right? Like, he's going to make sure that it was safe, the engine ran, nothing was going to fall off. And he point blank told me, right? We're going to those USAC races. He goes, if you're going to win these races, you got to qualify up front. You got to start up front and hang on, because you're sure as hell not going to drive by them all right now. You've got to pay it. You got to go up there and you got to watch. You got to see what they're doing. You got to listen to where their foot's on the throttle, where you got to run.
Yeah.
He goes, Levi, I can't tell you what to do to this car. If you want to make it go fast, you're going to have to learn what it is.
Know
right?
what an adjustment does to it. Yeah.
Because my dad, he'd ask, how much does it cost for this mechanic or this mechanic to go with us? Well, shit, we were spending a third of that just to race.
Right.
That was all the money we had to do it. So right, my dad would go over, right, J.J. Yaley parked by himself or at the end or whatever. Well, my dad would just go up and measure where his right tire was at. Like, and he'd be like, hey, Greg, what are you doing? He goes, well, you better tell me where to put it so we're not in the way if you're lapping us. You better.
He said this to JJ?
So, yeah.
Oh,
so,
my gosh.
You know, my dad's pretty big, and
Yes.
JJ laughed, and JJ helped me a lot, through those times of what to do. So,
God.
yeah, so that's how. So it kind of started early. Like my dad, like, hey, if you want to make it go fast, right? So we spent that time, me learning and what we need to do, and asking questions, and on the phone, and wearing people out. I mean, I wore Tracy Hines out, JJ, Jeff, Keith Coons, right? Like those guys were the one that, like, hey, their cars go fast. What are they doing,
Mhm.
right? So even with our own car, Davey Whitworth was taking care of the Burger King Outlaw car. Went to Hopstock with us one night. He did it. We qualified up front, raced up front, doing stuff that I'd never even dreamed of, right? So it's just cool to be a part of all that over 15 or 20 years of having a sprint car or driving a sprint car.
So you go from Jeff Walker driving and residing, even if it's just kind of in the shop, part-time, whatever, with him, to replacing Boston Reed in Scott Bennick's machine, and you do a little bit in Sprint Week in 03 with him, then you team back up in 04. Ultimately, you guys get a championship. This isn't necessarily a show about your career accomplishments and your resume, but as I talked about in the beginning, it's your first of 5 sprint car championships. The next 4 come with Tony Stewart Racing, and then you go on to get a couple Silver Crown titles. I spoke to Scott also, and he got right down to the marrow pretty quickly. He goes, yeah, having Levi here was a lot of fun. We grew super close together. He became part of our family, and he talked about how close you became with the family. One story was you taught his, at the time, 4-year-old son how to pee outside. And he goes, Levi just showed up and became a part of the family. And he said that's a funny story about you and his son. But he goes, the fact that Levi was able to attach himself and be comfortable and be friendly and fit into a family with a 4-year-old kid and be friends with the 4-year-old. When you're in your mid-20s probably at this point.
Yeah, I was 22 or 23 at that point.
And I mean, that's just an age of 22-year-olds aren't exactly known for being the friendliest, most cordial people in the world. I know I certainly wasn't. But Scott spoke at length about how good you did assimilating to their family. And again, you drive for him. That's the unique part of sprint car racing is you drive for these people. Sometimes you end up living with them. You stay with them. What are things that happen while residing with Scott and his family and their kids that have a mark on you today?
Yeah, that was a time, right? I was becoming a star in the sprint car world, right? Here's this kid that hadn't won before, right? So coming in, we started Sprint Week 04, I guess.
Yep.
Won Sprint Week. We didn't win a race. Ran up front. Every race won my first race at
Charlotte, right?
The end of 04. So when I had left Terre Haute.
Which, by the way, Charlotte comes at the end of 6 years racing in USAC before victory.
So really, we ran all of 2000, 2001, 2, 3, right in there. So, yeah, a long time, a lot of races, putting in the time and effort, and I felt like that was part of it. At the time, I wasn't so focused on it, right? I got to win now because I gotta win so I can get in NASCAR or do this or that. I was just trying to learn my trade, hone my skills so I could do it.
Well, and the point I bring that up, just so you know, is not to go man, dude, you really should have given it up 6 years or whatever before winning. Ugh, not good. It's to highlight your tenacity and your desire to just stick to it. And also what you just said, everybody today shows up. I was one of these kids in go-karting thinking, I got to get through here to get to NASCAR. But you truly just cared about being as good at that one thing you were doing that day as you could be. And admire that skill so much.
Yeah. I loved it at Scott's, right? He had a speed shop and guys ordering parts and people in and out, and what are they doing to their car? And I can remember we would sell parts right off the car we were racing. I was pumped because I knew if we'd ran that part 6 times and they're buying it, I'm putting a new one in, right? So like, arms and bird cages or cars or stuff right off our car because they thought our stuff was better on the car. So we get new, but that time frame, right, of 04, I started at Sprint Week. So I'd started 04 with Handy Construction, BWB in Terre Haute. I moved into a little apartment there. Scott and John Granby were awesome. I worked with, John had worked on Bowen's cars, early years, and he was great. So he was later in his career, just helped us, right? He was, and then his son Scott learned a ton from those guys. Love those guys. Racing with Bill was a little tough, right? So I was a young kid, and we had a sprint car, pavement and dirt, and Silver Crown, pavement and dirt, and all this stuff, and it was really cool. And it just, we got to the point here. I quit. I quit the morning of Eldora after Lima. Just didn't see eye to eye with Bill, and I didn't have anything.
And when you say that, and I heard you tell that story on Lanny's show. I mean, again, I want lots of people to listen to this and hear about this. And there's people in corners of racing that think like quitting a ride, that's crazy. Why would you do that? And you don't have to give like every single sort of detail, but when you say you don't see eye to eye, is it setup? Is it preparation of the car? Is it maintenance of the car? Is it safety of the car?
Just how it was going. I mean, that was a lot for young kids. So it was me and Scott, and John worked part-time, but he was full-time, right? So 3 and running multiple cars, and other people come in driving. I just didn't feel like we could be as prepared as we needed to be to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want and Scott really taught me this after going there, of quality, not quantity.
Totally.
I didn't care about racing 100 races. I wanted to run the races we could, be the best prepared, have the best cars, and do it. I didn't care if they had a new paint job, right? I just wanted to be fast. So I did that, and I didn't have anything going. So, Tim Engler comes back in the story right there. I'm thinking, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to do for Sprint Week? I'm getting all my old buddies, my dad's buddies. What can we do to go and race Sprint Week with our own car? We'll build a car. Tim had said I could run one of his engines. So I actually sent Scott the list of all the parts I needed, right? Used parts, what we could do, what do you think it's going to cost me, right? Because I'd ran a couple races the year before, and Scott and I had met when I was selling parts on the internet years before to make money to go racing. And so he calls me back, and he goes, well, you helped me out. You helped us out last year. Scott's to the point, right?
Yeah.
Hey, you helped me out last year. Why don't we just, what do you think about running 2 cars Sprint Week?
Because you were essentially trying to build a car for yourself.
I'm like, let's go. Okay.
Yeah.
He goes, well, it's going to take me a while. I got to figure out how to do it, right? So here I am, like, and in the meantime, Dan Roberts calls me to run Sprint Week. I'm like, I think I got it right.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. So eventually, like, and I can remember the call, and Scott to the point, right? He's like, called, hey, we're just gonna run 1 car Sprint Week. I'm like instantly deflated.
Yeah, it's not you.
That I'm like, and he goes, Boston's not gonna drive anymore. I'm like, what? What? Okay, because Boston was the guy, right? He was had ties to Hendrick and was doing some stuff, and so now I'm in it, right? So we go, and we rock and roll. We win. I win at Charlotte. We come back. We're still not, we're not the favorite to win the championship, but I was there. I'd moved there. Scott, they didn't have a house yet. They had a shop. They were living in the RV at the shop. The upstairs, the guy that came in and welded, I think he came in at 5 or 6 in the morning before his other job started. He would do bumpers and nerfs. So I'm in the corner of the mezzanine, a twin bed, maybe a twin. Did they make something smaller than a twin? It probably was.
A single.
So it was like a mattress, and there was no walls on the mezzanine. So I had a sprint car top wing here, sprint car top wing here, a broom going across that, had some shirts hung up. So I'm all in, man. Like nothing else exists in the world. We're sprint car racing. What we got to do, I learned how to build shocks from AFCO. I'm taking care of all of our shocks. I'm building customer shocks. We're racing. I can remember, the welder comes in. I'm like, oh shit, it's already. I hated getting.
So he's
that
your
early.
alarm clock essentially.
Yeah. So I get up and I walk down in my boxers through the shop to the shower there. Had a mirror in that shower.
Good for you.
But I'd already learned the skill. I didn't need the shower. Didn't need the extra minute time to do it. So
Scott's like, who took the
rolling.
mirror down?
Yeah. So we're rolling. Like I can, long stretch of time, I would mount tires up. I would groove them. I would sipe them, dismount them, stack them up. We would wax and polish the inside of the trailer, every wheel, rebuild the shop. Like outside world didn't exist, right? So, so I'm living in the mezzanine. They're in the motorhome. They're building a house not far from the shop. So they get that. I can't even remember where this is, through 04 to the winter of 04 to 05. I think they get the house done. So they've got, Jonah is, like you said, is 3 or 4, right? Like, so I'm living there. I get up, I go to the shop with Scott, I come home with Scott, right? We're talking. This is before the season. Yeah, that's the winter, 04, 05.
Mm-hmm.
So then we go out and we're good. Like we get the pavement car pretty close. We're competitive there. We're kicking ass on dirt, Maxim. We've built a new car, coils and roll bars and stuff. So we're really good. And we win the championship, win all those races together. Tony Stewart offers me a ride. So that was tough, right? That's emotional. We become so close as a family, living there on, in the mezzanine, into the house, staying there, right? 3 and 4 year old kids they're tough, man. I know. I went through it myself, right? So all that, I did move to Muncie with Scotty Weir and
Brad Bennick.
Yeah. So all those guys, right? I had great guys, right? I mean,
you're pretty much on the Ball State campus, as Scott tells me.
I was going to school, except I didn't go to class.
He said it might as well have been a college dormitory, but they weren't enrolled, and a lot of stuff went on at that. What was it? A house?
Yeah, it was a house on Marsh Street in Muncie, right? So college houses there. It was awesome. I remember moving in. So I'm like 22, 23, and I'm winning races, and I've got some money. I think I've got enough money to live the rest of my life. Tony,
totally.
Right? Like like, hey, Scotty, get internet. We got to have internet here. We're not mowing the lawn. We don't have time to mow the lawn.
Lawn
get somebody
service.
To mow the lawn, right?
Yeah.
Get stuff. So that was really fun with those guys, just living it up, right? It didn't matter. We didn't have anywhere to be tomorrow, right? We had I think we had a sectional couch in there. And then it was 3 bed. My bedroom, Scotty's were upstairs, and Tony's was downstairs, and just a great time. And we'd have Tuesdays and Wednesday nights were our weekends, right? Oh man, it'd piss Scott off so bad because we'd be late to the shop. We wouldn't get there till you got there at 9. We've already missed 2 hours of the day, and just a blast, right? So we had guys come over, all those guys. It was a lot of fun. We were winning races. Didn't have any bills. I think I had a cell phone bill at that time.
Well, now internet, because you put Scotty Weir in charge of that.
I was like, guys, just whatever. I'm not splitting it just here. Whatever it is, make sure it's paid. And,
big baller.
Yeah, you think about it then. But, yeah. And so then.
You really were made for the quarter zip lifestyle.
Yeah. So we get through that year, and my life's changing a little bit, right? So, Jeff Dickerson calls me, and those guys with Agjanian's group, and then Tony's guys are talking to me about racing. And honestly, I told TSR, if it's just a sprint car,
not doing it.
I don't want to do it. So, right? So Silver Crown car and the midget stuff. So we did it, and then that was kind of where my moved from there. I had an apartment in Brownsburg when I first went there. Kirk Spridgen lived on my couch. He was working at USAC and making like $13 a year. So he still owes me rent. We need to make an invoice. He owes me rent.
Yeah,
for sure.
I got an invoicing software.
Yeah. So that was fun being in Indy. Had that, and then bought a house there behind TSR and Force, and guys lived with me there. My buddy Nate and mechanic John, and Shane Meal. Coming back racing, lives on my couch, right? He comes back learning how to race for real, right? Didn't know you actually had to wash your own uniform and carry it to the races, and so that was cool meeting. But like then, meeting, I'd met Shane, Shane's dad, at a NASCAR race, right? Like as So then talking to Steve, and Steve saying, hey, Shane's going to come back. He's trying to get back going again, and becoming friends with him. I was trying to teach him life and race and all that. So,
but see, like, that's the deal, right? And
Yeah.
like, I don't know if I knew about Spridge staying with you. I knew you had a place in Brownsburg, but like, you're, all the joking aside, you're like the perfect representation of what I'm trying to do here, which is show people that you're just a handshake away from meeting that person, that group, that family that's willing to help you out. Now, of course, you got to do a lot of the work to get there. You got to be a person that people want to invite into their home. You got to be someone that brings value to a situation, because you were never a charity case. Jeff Walker, Tim Engler, Scott Bennick, they're not going, oh, let's let this kid in off the street, make sure he eats tonight. You brought value to them in the form of a racer and someone who could help their businesses and their cars make money. But my point is, you go from living and crashing on couches and in shop mezzanines to offering that same opportunity to people down the road in your career and in your life. And that's really what this thing is about. You hit on it. And so I don't want to fly past it, because it's worth talking about, be it uncomfortable as it may be. You and Scott Bennick split. You've talked about it at length in other sit downs. And so, I want to hit on it here. It's an uncomfortable split when you leave. And it wasn't as easygoing as it was with Jeff Walker, where when you go to Jeff, he goes, yeah, man, great opportunity, go for it. And he supports you, truly. Scott does not take it as well. Is that fair to say?
Oh, fair to say, yeah, probably 2.5, 3 years, right? We didn't
speak.
Didn't speak, and it was it. But it's not the first time that's happened in racing. It's sure as hell not going to be the last time, right? You see it every year. It's tough. It's a tough sport, man. It takes all your being to do it. But I take each one. You've talked about each one of those. So I've always been probably back to even young kid, right? Like, I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to know the most about this couch or this headset or that. I want to be around people that we can work as a group. And, this guy, he can help us here, and we're putting all this together. I just want to be the guy that can be present, pay attention. If I can contribute where I can, I'm gonna answer. I'm gonna get back to you. I'm gonna, try to be a part of it. And that's how it's been since I was a kid, showing up as a 16-year-old kid and nobody knew who we were in the pits, to being a 7-time champion along the way. And you talk about the deal with Scott. That was tough, right? It's like, for one, everybody has to look out for yourself first. If you're not, you're going to get ran over.
Absolutely.
Especially in racing, right?
Absolutely.
So, Scott's business and what what he was building there and able to do, right? Like, yeah, he wanted to keep that going. Could we have went and won more races in the sprint car? Absolutely. I have no doubt, right? Mm-hmm. Like, but I had to look out for myself, because as we're working through 05, we're trying to win the championship. In racing, it takes more money. If you've got more time, you can give it. If you got more money, it'll take it.
Yeah.
So we're trying to find money, and it's like, man, that part wore me out, right?
As far as looking for that with Scott.
Looking for that, money and to do it and how we want to do it, right? And that part was stressful. I'm like, okay, over here, right? Here's
unlimited resources.
Yeah. That part of knowing, they want me to drive.
And Tony Stewart will pay what it takes.
Yeah, that was part of it. So it took, the shock to Scott and his business and his race team, but I also thought I brought value to it, right? He had guys that came in after me that had funding to do it, built up a team, building a relationship with RW and his business and everything. So I think getting past those next, 2 or 3 years, I went back, I drove his midget at the Chili Bowl a few years later after we kind of, back together. And, he's a guy that if I have a question about something here, I'll he would answer the phone. Right? If I call Scott, he's going to answer the phone. You give me a list of 10 guys in my Rolodex. If I call them, they're going to answer the phone. He's at the top.
And he said that literally. So I spoke to him yesterday, and he said that, yeah, it was tough to lose the driver. It was tough to lose the winner, but he really stood on the fact that it was hard and it hurt him, in his words, because the time you spent with his family and because of how close you got with him as a person and how you were such a part of their life when it had nothing to do with racing. Like you said, the hours between pulling into the pits and pulling out of the pits make up a lot more of the day. He said that it hurt more than anything with those circumstances as how you're looking at it. I guess, again, I just, I want to bring it back to you, the person, and Jeff Walker, the person, and Scott Bennick, the person. Looking back on that now, what did you learn in that experience of getting really close to someone? And he doesn't fault you either. Just, again, I don't think I need to clear the air, but he understands why you did what you did. And of course, you know that because you guys maintain a relationship today. But does something stand out from that experience and stepping away, maybe the way you went about it, the way he sort of took the news? Does anything like that linger in your life today, where when your kids come to you, where an employee comes to you, where somebody at USAC came to you, that you think back to that time, that breakup with Scott Bennick, and you go, wow, this is familiar territory because I've been through it?
Yeah, I think the part of that of being present, right? I was present in the situation. I wanted to be there. I did it. So, two, I removed myself from a big part of my own family, right? So, my parents, my sister, right? We're racing. You're missing weddings and funerals and birthday parties and all that stuff. Everything, So, we're only to Fairmount is a long damn ways, right? So I'm disconnected what my family a little bit. It's shifted over here. So two, you have to be present in whatever situation you're in, right? So I'm putting myself in there, not keeping stuff close to the vest where, hey, this is what it is. My grandma passed away in 2005. Went to funeral, straight back to Lima. We won the race, right? All that stuff of life and what that happens. I think the biggest thing is just, if you're going to be part of something, you got to be present. You got to give it your all. If you're going to do it, you got to give it your all. And at the time, it was crazy how it all happens. I mean, really, no different than my job here, or when IndyCar calls me. Shit happens so fast, right? Like, today, right? Like, I mean, anything could happen. I think God holds the ability to change the trajectory of your life right now.
Absolutely.
Right. And that can happen. So the end of Scott's to the next chapter in my career happened so fast. Did I want it to happen that way? No. I would rather have been able to tell Scott in June, hey,
at the end of this season.
No, in the middle of the season while we're still doing it.
Right. But give him the heads up that at the end of this season,
like,
I'll be.
Yeah, hey, we're going to keep kicking ass. I'm going to give 100%. I know you are. We're going to do it. This is our goal, but we're going to do that. Well, it didn't happen. It all happened by chance in Florida at the pavement race and the PRI show, and nothing had been announced and stuff. So it was just crazy, but that I've seen it happen 1,000 times since in racing and how all that works.
And it'll continue to do so, as you said. But to kind of wrap up on Scott, he did say, he goes, I'm proud of Levi every day. And I thought that was cool that, again, despite the dip in your guys' relationship that you experienced, you said it, you've come back, you've raced for him, you speak with him on the phone. I love the reference to, like, if I gave you 10 names out of your contact list, you'd expect Scott to be the one that picks up every single time out of those 10. So I don't know if it's one of those all's well that ends well situations, but I think those tough moments on the track, off the track, in the dining room, around the TV, in the truck, whatever, those are the moments you learn the most from, right? Nobody learned a lot from winning.
Yeah.
That you learn a lot from losing. I imagine you agree with that.
Yeah, and I always go back to, I said this my whole life, right? Like, my dad came home for lunch every day, right? Mom made lunch. He came home for lunch. They got a lot of shit sorted out at 45 minutes at lunch, right?
Yeah, just about their life,
just like
the
getting
family.
on the same page, getting, what's up, what's bothering you, what's good, right? And Dad always snuck a 10-minute nap in, so he would reset and go back to work.
Good for him.
But lunch, I took that, I went to Jeff's and raced, man. We went to lunch. We'd go to Charleston's. I didn't have enough money to go to Charleston's, but I was going to Charleston's and paying for it, and we were eating lunch because, Tony was there going with us, or Lindley, or any of those guys, or Hartman. We're all going together. You just get so much. You're opened up. You open your vest up. You talk about it at lunch, and you're gonna get a lot of stuff accomplished. So Jeff's, going to Scott's. I mean, wasn't a lot of places to eat in Fairmount, but we went to the Outpost. About every day, right? Whether it be Brad Bennick or or Dutch or any of those guys there, we all went, right? The kids, who's working there, we go there. We talk about who we got to beat this week. What do we need to do? Do we think we need to change this? What's wrong with that? What's going on? hey, how's your life? What's going on? Is your wife all right? Your family? So you do that. I didn't know this then, right? I wasn't thinking this then, but looking at it now, 20 years later, right? So I leave there, right? We go, Jeff's, Scott's. I go to TSR, right? I could have lived in Cuba, right? And showed up at the races, and they would have had stuff ready. It would have been good, right? But I'm sure I pissed them off sometimes, like
The crew at Tony's.
the crew, yeah, like what? You don't need to be here, but I would try to be present.
Who are we
Present.
talking? Like Ricky, Steve?
All of them, right? So to be a part of that shop, right? It's a bigger crew, right? I mean, Ed Braun came in there as the machinist, and the whole the USAC side of it, guys coming in and moving out, or from we had crew guys from the outlaw
Yeah,
side
he's
come
got two
over
teams
and work for a
racing.
year, right? We would go to Brickers, right? Like, holy shit, you go back and look at my taxes, like you go back when you're lunch at Brickers, and then you got another invoice at 11 at Brickers, right? But going to lunch, we could talk about it. Hey, you might see Forces drag racing guys, and hey, they're talking about this new material or something they're building stuff out of or whatever. Same thing, right? You're taking that hour, you're stopping what you're doing, focused on what you're focused on, talking about it with the group. And I still think that we made gains on the racetrack by going to lunch and talking about stuff.
Well, are you a golf guy?
I love to go golf, and I'm terrible, right? I love to play 9 holes, and guys want to play 18. Okay, I'm after about 12. I'm burnt out, but I love being in the cart and shooting the shit and talking about what's going on.
Well, the point is, and
if I have enough balls.
and
If
I-
run out of balls, I gotta go in.
hey, you raced here, you've got balls. But the point is, and I'm not a golf guy, I wish I was, but Scotty Scheffler gave an interview earlier this year, I think, maybe it was over like the last 18 months or whatever. And I don't even remember the interview. I just saw like a summation of the interview, which is that he talked about stepping away from the game periodically. And what is he, the number 1, the number 2 golfer in the world? I don't know golf, but I know he's very, very good. He's really good. And he talked about golf is not his life. I think he talked about his wife, his kids, his faith. And he talked about like those are the most important things to him. And the point of I probably saw it scroll on social media. And the point of it is that detachment is the secret sauce. And right when I ask you, do you like golf? Well, boom, you're talking about, man, I love to go. I'm not any good at it. But no doubt, whether it's today when you're dealing with all the pressures that come with running this place, maybe the most famous dirt track in the world, right? And you're the dude that makes the decisions, going and playing 9 or 12 holes of golf and then sitting on the golf cart helps you stay present. Like another thing you talked about here, and just like, man, it might be for an hour a day to go to Brickers in Brownsburg, but we're not just living and breathing and staring at this sprint car frame. We're not obsessing over torsion bars and spring rates and all this stuff, which is super important to winning out here. But it sounds like something I'm getting from you is take the break from the thing you're obsessing about and just obsess about it over here, over a pizza, over a basket of chicken tenders, and you'd be amazed at how your perspective shifts. Is that kind of...
Exactly, right? I mean, that you hit it. I mean, you're... even if you go to the course or go to the restaurant or, go somewhere else, your passion and what's on your mind is still on your mind.
Exactly. It doesn't go away, but literally just changing your physical setting and what you see changes how you might think about something, right? What goes into the eyes, what goes into the ears lives in the mind. And I think that's such a...
No, it makes you saying that, right? Like, it makes me think about, okay, we've been sitting here, Tony and I, talking like, how many calls have I missed, right? Who needs me? Who needs an answer from me, right? Like, but you just have to know that, hey, you show up, you do the work, you grind it out, no matter what people say, good, bad, nothing, show up, do the work. The right results will happen in the right amount of time. I don't know how long it'll be, but I fully believe that if you show up and do the work, the right results will happen at some point.
I agree with you, and I buy into that philosophy. That's also a real subtle way to say you need to get back to work. So I'm joking. But, okay, so now we move to today, and unless there's a couch or a guest room I'm skipping over, because I feel like after staying with the Bennicks and in that house in Muncie, you and Heidi end up meeting, and Ava comes into your life, and then you have your boys. And Jeff Walker talked about when you won your last race with him at Gas City, he talked about how Levi goes, man, I got 3 kids that depend on me. and you probably didn't really want to quit driving, but you knew you needed to, and you needed to make it so that your kids and wife weren't worried about if you were going to come home from a sprint car race in the middle of God knows where. And you joked about it with me when we were walking through the office here at Eldora that you're still kind of technically riding a couch and crashing a guest room. It's just from someone with a lot more couches and guest rooms in their collection.
Yeah, it's not. Right. I'm still riding the couch. The couch I'm living on, the house I'm in, Tony owns it, right? It's Joan Star Schmidtmeyer's old house. The track bought it a number of years ago. Part of the job, hey, yours to use, I don't know what it looks like in there. Well, it was like, hey, the story of the couch that I had and the house, like I was building a house. We were 5 days, had closed on our house 5 days before I talked to Brett and Tony, right? So a new house in Indy.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
We built it. We had bought and sold houses and moved around and kind of built this one how we wanted it. Hey, this is good. But I think that's why God holds the right to change the trajectory, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I had to have a few cocktails before I went home and told Heidi I'd talk to them again. But that's true. So we did it, right? I prayed about it. We talked about our family, and that's where we ended up. But there aren't a lot of houses for sale.
Not out
in
here.
this area. So when we first came over here, like, okay, wow. So right, trying to figure out what we do. The main thing was getting the kids in school where, in St. Henry, and that's been great. Just kind of checking off those boxes and working on it. So now we have it. We have Tony's house looking pretty good over there. Everybody's happy. And, Winston was our youngest. He was not a huge race fan. He's an F1 fan. He's pissed that he can't watch it on ESPN right now.
That's what you get for naming him a British name.
Yeah, so that's very true. So he's like, what? Why? What do we do? His baseball team and all that stuff. So now
I was going to ask, transitioning them from Indy and their baseball probably was actually pretty hard.
It was hard. And I said that, right? Like, hey, what, when they ask me what's your biggest worry or fear about the, job, I said, hey, I don't want to sound like I'm not worried about the job and the track and the races and that stuff.
But your family's way more important.
My biggest fear is my family and making sure my kids fit in. Like, I grew up in a small town. It can be tough, right?
Yeah.
If you're from the outside, it could be tough. So, but that's been great. Couldn't have drew it up to be better. The people in the area are great. Great area, but we are still crashing on the couch, right? And in Tony's house, and appreciate that. But now Winston's like, why would we ever move, right? He loves helping with the merchandise. He gets home from school. Hey, how many orders do we got? Can I do those orders?
Is he saying why would we ever move from here?
Oh,
yeah. Great. Okay.
So in 1 year, right, in 12 or 13 months, a 13-year-old's view of it's like, why'd you ever move? You can go work. You can do. The good thing is you're right here. The bad thing is you're right here.
It sounds like you've got your succession plan lined out pretty well right now with your youngest son. Okay, so Tony Stewart employs you to drive his sprint car and his Silver Crown car and his midget. And I think it's fair to say, and I feel comfortable saying this because I've worked for him now. I've done some stuff. I've met my hero. I think he's a very different guy today than he was in 2005 when he buys the Eldora Speedway. I hope we'd at least not disagree with that sentiment. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but I think as everyone, you're probably different than you were
for sure.
In 2005. I'm different than I was in 2005, and I think Tony Stewart's different. So this was something I wanted to ask you, basically, since you took this place over and you became employed by him for the second time in a very different role. What's it like working for that dude in multiple settings, in multiple facets, and what have you learned about life? What have you learned about business? Because again, Tony Stewart, the driver, and Levi Jones, the driver, sure, they probably have similarities. Sure, they probably have a lot of differences, but I don't really care so much about the drivers. I care about the people. So crashing on Tony Stewart's couch, which I know it's a little bit more classed up than that. What's something you've seen him do recently since working here at Eldora and spending time with him in this role?
We ran the last race of the year here. Tony Stewart flew from Vegas, a Southwest flight to Indy, and came to Eldora to race. Would Tony Stewart be able to do that in 2005, 8, 10? Probably not, right? But he wanted to be here. We're working on the track, right? We're not hiding anything that, this is Eldora. It's big and fast. Having the surface and the track is tough, right? What we've got to do here, we've got a plan in place, and Tony's more a part of that plan of the track than anything else, right? He doesn't do this for charity. It's a business, right? So as a business, I've got to make sure that decisions that are made, what people do around here, has the best interest of Eldora Speedway as a business. That's what we have to do. But what he cares about and watching and trying to help and making sure we have the resource, making sure that I have what we need to fix or do or change, right? So you see it around here. We've got
Turn 1 grandstands going up, more pavement getting put over on the pathway connecting the front stretch to the pits around 3 and 4. You guys are making improvements all the time, and again, I stroked you probably a little earlier about that, but I just think it's incredible to see that you and Tony have stayed so close. And I mean, he's a figure, right? I mean, he is someone
absolutely.
that you could absolutely describe as a celebrity in our world. And again, you don't have to give me anything you don't want, but I'm just curious, like, you have to have had some kind of moment with him where you've seen him handle his celebrity, handle his businesses, you have the family part
right?
figured out.
I've seen that through the years, right? Like, at the Chili Bowl, right? What are these people going to do, right? The line and what they want signed, and how, Tony's time and Eddie having to handle the people and situations, and, racing and the different teams and, personalities and people, right? Tony's always hire the people, put them in place to do the job. But Tony's always been available to me if I need help, right? Always ask, right? What do you need? What do we need to do to make it better? And that's something this year, right? Like, we want to make the surface better. We're working on the track. What do we have to do? What does Rob and his gang need to be better, to do more, make it easier? So I've used that with him, right? When he shows up to the race here to help, he doesn't make it harder for anyone. I've been through that before, right? At the race shop or whatever. Hey, Tony's coming to the shop. Big deal. Doesn't matter if he shows up unannounced or tell him. We're doing stuff the same way, whether he's going to be here unannounced or announced, right? He's put that faith in who he's hired to do it, and really that's how it is here, right? We stayed after we beat the weather Saturday of the last race, and he stayed, and Sunday we went through. It was rainy and cold, and we went through the whole facility, right? We want to make the bathrooms better. What do we do with the grandstands that we have now? Could be a big project years down the road, but here's what we have now. What do we do? The track, go-kart track, all of those things is cool, because he didn't have to stay here, right? It could have been a text or a call or whatever, but he cares about racing. Eldora, the same thing that has us all hooked. Why he stayed on couches, right? I mean, Brad and Tara Armstrong, making sure before the 4 Crown, right? Like, because Tony had to live on Brad and Tara's couch, right? All the people involved, the people that were part of it before he ever ran his first lap at a NASCAR race or an IndyCar race, they're here. They're still Eldora people, dirt track people. He loves it just as much as us. So it's really it's fun. It's more of getting to do what we want to do, not having to go to work.
Okay, so I want to hit you some quick hits here as we wrap this up. And you did a lot of like shop mezzanines and like kind of a little bit more unconventional accommodations, but you still did stay with people. You talked about being in Tim Engler's guest room, and I'm sure you ended up in the guest room or the couch of Bennick and Jeff at least once or twice when they felt bad and let you in for a hot meal or something. And you're a full-grown man. You've got kids these days, and so I'm going to get probably very different answers than I got from Toby Balboan, who runs Sprint Car Hub in Sydney, Australia, and he's living on Rico Abreu's guest room, or living in Rico's guest room this year, doing all of Rico's content and social media. So he's currently residing as a 31-year-old guy in someone's guest room, but I'm interested to see what your takes on some of these are. And these are just your philosophies. These aren't necessarily how you did it when you were staying with Tim, with Jeff, with Scott Bennick, with Glenn. And I don't even know, is there anything about Glenn that we completely glossed over him? Is there an experience or a story from staying with him out in California that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think learning about business in general from Glenn too, right? Inland Technologies was, really, I mean, it blew up. It was huge, right? So when he sold that, learning that, talking with him, and staying at his house, I don't know why in the hell I would ever leave that couch, right? I mean, a beautiful race shop, a full, 2,000 square foot apartment above it with, all new, new stuff. The swimming pool was awesome. The hot tub.
And where in California were they?
You're in Rancho Cucamonga.
Oh, wow.
Right? So you can be to the beach in less than an hour. You can be to Ontario. Yeah. So that just shows you how crazy I was and wanting to be a sprint car champion, of getting back and running the USAC deal. Right? Why would anyone ever leave that? I could have, still been doing that probably. Right. So, but that, living on couches and people, Scotty Weir went there and for 2 years and raced and, took that experience, even though I did drive Scotty's dad's car and win a couple races and pissed Scotty off along the way here. But, yeah, so Glenn's part was awesome for me, over those years, and I do ask, like, hey, what would it look like if I would have just worked for him and raced out there or whatever, right? You don't know, right?
Yeah, you don't, but it obviously is probably a pretty fun thing to daydream and think about for a little bit. So, yeah, I don't want necessarily these to be answers of how you did it when you stayed with these people. It's more just your kind of general philosophy on this as a 43-year-old man today. Maybe these are lessons that you hope your kids hear and you'd want them to act like when they're going to be guests in a friend or another family's home. But so we'll just start off when you're going to be a guest, when you're crashing on someone's couch or guest room, first time coming in the house, shoes on or off when you walk in the front door.
Oh man, are we talking about as if I was doing it today or if I was 18 or 19?
These are more like your general philosophies today, but I'm obviously interested.
Let's break it down, right? Jeff Walker, not married, no kids. You better have your shoes off, pick up your stuff, make sure your jacket's hung up. Don't put stuff down, pick up your dirty clothes. My time at Scott's, right, with Jonah was 3 or 4. I mean, there was shit thrown everywhere, so nobody even know. You do whatever.
Yeah,
right?
You could have walked in with mud on your hands probably when you're living with a family, and I don't know, maybe that's how it is these days at yours and Heidi's house.
You say that the shoes. Talk about couches, right? We're crashing on Tony's couch over there. Probably one of the coolest things.
Yeah, what's Tony Stewart say? Can you wear shoes in his house?
So the part about the house over there, the first time the boys had a bunch of friends over, right? They came to our house, right? And Heidi sends me a picture of, 14 pair of shoes at the front door, right? That was awesome.
Yeah.
But there are also kids from right here, right? Hardworking families, manners. They play hard and they work hard.
Yeah.
But every one of them took their shoes off without being told to
That's
take their
cool.
shoes off. So, that was something. You saying that makes me think of that this summer.
That's really cool. Maybe I don't know what I'm going to do with this. A lot of these stories you tell, I'd like to drop photos and like some supporting video B-roll over some of these stories, but also that takes a long time, and I'm not very motivated. I'm kind of lazy. You know that, but like, who knows? Maybe we can drop that photo in over you talking, because that does sound really cool. This is probably not something you had to really worry about, because when you were staying with these people, you were there to work and you were there to race. You weren't there to hang out and loaf on the couch. But this is a one I always fall into really badly, even today when I'm staying on people's couches or in guest rooms, especially with how like modern TVs are today. What's the strategy on the remote when you're staying with someone? Is it like whatever they're watching, whatever's on, we're hanging out and I'll sit and enjoy? Or is it like, hey, I got to show you something. Let me pull something up really quick.
Man, in today's world, I can't even get our own remote to turn the TV on. So trying to get the dang thing on is probably the biggest challenge. But
you are dating yourself.
Yeah, right. So I guess today you just watch it on your phone.
Right.
I'll pull it up. But, I felt like when I was in those situations, I felt like I was part of the family or part of that group. And I probably turn on what I want to watch.
Yeah.
College basketball or something.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And that's not like a scenario. The scenario I'm painting here is not like you walk in and take the remote and change the channel. It's more like, oh, we're not really watching anything. Nothing's really important on. I have a bad habit these days of walking into I just stayed with a friend in Charlotte before I went to Martinsville to do this Mazda race, and I'm just crashing with them, and we're not really watching anything. We're wrapping up dinner, and I go, hey, can I show you guys something? And it's Dirt Season 2 that Flo put out, or I'm like, you guys got to follow Eldora Speedway on YouTube, and I'm showing them, because with the smart TVs, it's a computer damn near. So I still fall into that habit of not too long am I in someone's house that I'm showing them.
I probably don't do any of that, because I've honestly lost control of any of the remotes in our own house.
Right.
So
when you're
I
over,
don't think of it if I go somewhere else. So
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, and at Tony's you can just watch whatever you want because when you're here, you're probably by yourself. Talked about this one with Toby because like I said, he's employed by the A-Brews, so it's a little bit different, and you were for most of your situations as well. But when you're staying with someone, when they've opened up their home to you, and you want to say thanks, do you prepare them a meal in their kitchen, or do you take them out to eat?
Yeah, definitely take them out to eat here. I mean, my mom taught me, handwritten notes.
On recipes?
Handwritten notes go a long way. So not a recipe.
Oh,
just
you're
a
just
thank
saying as
you-
like a way to say
a
thank you.
note, right? And I'm, I love to eat. I mean, you can tell I love to eat. So taking someone to eat, that's, they don't have to worry about it. They don't have to clean it up. I'm not fixing it and screwing it up. Let's just go somewhere.
Right. I the handwritten note thing, it's funny. Nobody ever really put it in my head, but I've stayed on so many couches. I've stayed in so many guest rooms, whether it's for professional reasons or I'm just back home in Colorado visiting family and friends from college and school. I always find it seems like everybody has one of those vertical oriented notepads to make grocery lists or take messages. Nobody takes messages these days, but I always find one of those and I write a couple notes is my goal. And then I fold them up and I hide them in the house. I've put them in friends' freezers. I've put them underneath I've put them in the microwave dish, the dish that rotates. So I always like to leave them. So I'll get text messages months later, and it's an unfolded note from when I stayed in the winter.
Yeah, that's
and it's
cool.
June,
I like
and
that.
yeah, so it's my fun way of being annoying. Or I got into this bad habit for a long time of leaving boarding passes at people's houses when I'd fly to see them. I'd just leave the boarding pass somewhere that they'd find it underneath the pillow, in their pillowcase. Real kind of asshole stuff. And then I think the last one that I did with Toby was, okay, you're staying in Jeff Walker's house. You're staying with Scott Bennick and his family. You're Tony's here for some weird reason, and you're staying with him at the house, which I don't think that probably ever happens. But do you ever touch the thermostat as a guest? Is it apropos to warm it up, cool it off, or are you just I'm staying at whatever it's set at and I'm not touching it? Because today as a dad, you probably have a strong opinion on that.
I do. We battle about that every day, I think, at our
With
house.
your kids?
Yeah, kids and Heidi, and where you're at, what time of day, what's going on. So yeah, I definitely am going to push the button.
Even when you're a guest?
Yeah. So guess I'm going to push the button. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I mean, especially today it's a beautiful day.
I know I've done it in the
But 2 days
tower.
ago it was snowing.
Yeah, I've done it in the tower, the thermostat in the tower. I go in and damn, it's hot in here. Turn the air down. I come back in. Ooh, put it back up. So.
Well, the booth is the place I've spent the most time here at Eldora. Well, these days it's the infield, but I know that I like a very cold booth because, as you can tell, I'm sweating probably sitting here and after setting up. But yeah, those are just kind of little pieces of wisdom that everybody's got their philosophy on. Toby talked about man, there's been days where I've been sitting editing a Rico video and they have it so cold in the house I don't dare touch it. He goes, so I'm sitting there editing in 3 blankets.
I do have a thermostat store at hotels, right? So when I was in
yeah.
IndyCar Rocket in technical inspection, he takes apart the thermostat everywhere we go. He has some.
Surely you weren't rooming together,
no,
were you?
But he'd say the room it only go down. I know it won't work. He's got the thing tore apart and got it reprogrammed and has it whatever temperature he wants everywhere we went. So
that's pretty nice. I remember rooming with you a couple times at USAC, and I felt like we both were pretty cool with getting it as cold as it would go. When you're a bigger guy, which you're joking, but you're really not that big. You're always looking for it to be a little bit cooler. Dude, this has been awesome. I just so much dig. My stick with High Limit these days is, listen, I don't know every single thing about the technical side of a sprint car. I wish I did. I wish I was born and raised working on these things, but I don't know. I'm trying really hard. But my bet is that people in those stands here at Eldora and people watching at home on Flow, most of them are interested in the technical side, but only to a point. But it's real hard to relate to a torsion arm. It's real hard to relate to the jetting of a carburetor, right? It's real hard to relate to how tacky turn 3 is. But it's real easy to relate to, man, this guy sold out to do what he wanted and chased his dreams, and look where he is. I want to do that someday. So getting to hear your stories and getting to hear your side of it is just super, super beneficial, I think, to the overall growth of the sport. And I want people to watch this one, to watch Toby's. I'd be ecstatic if I could get Tony. I'm hoping to get Kyle. I want people to watch these and go, man, look where Levi Jones made it, running the Eldora Speedway, working for Roger Penske, winning 7 driving championships with USAC, and he did it with his own hard work, but also because people believed in him and trusted him. And you've done that now moving forward. You've helped Spridge. You've Shane Meal. You've put guys up in your house and on your floor and on your guest room and on your couch. And I'm betting it's probably because you wanted to see them succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I appreciate you wanting to hear about my story, and you bring up the people that I've stayed with, people have stayed with me. Being a part of the story, that's the fun part, right? I was staying on Mike Spencer's couch when Ron, when he got the call from Bruce Bromley to drive the Chafin 50, right? I mean, his dad raced sprint cars. The 50 car was the sprint car. That was his lifelong sprint car goal, was to drive the 50 car. I was staying on his couch and to be there with him and be that excited, right? I'm driving Tony's car. He's driving the 50 car. Those are the cool things that all happen when I'm staying on somebody's couch.
Yeah. The stories where it all was really, really easy and everything went perfectly and there was no struggle, I feel like those aren't the stories people tell.
Right.
It's the, can you believe I did this?
Yeah.
Can you believe I made it? Can you believe we had to do this? And look at the people that helped me.
Yeah. It's really cool because you don't, I don't, most people don't, right? You don't have a plan laid out, where you're going, what you're doing. There's no plan. It's the journey, right? Like anything can happen. The planned out stuff's not cool. People don't buy their T-shirts.
Exactly. Well, I mean, you literally take the words out of my mouth. One of the people who really inspired this thing that I'm doing now, Chris Egger, owns a go-kart track out south of Portland up in Oregon. And I met him through karting, and I get this job with Road to Indy that the Andersons promoted for so long. And I get this chance to go work at the Road to Indy, but it's an unpaid internship. And I'm living in Concord, North Carolina at the time, chasing stock car opportunities and dirt track racing. And the Eggers open up their house to me and say, come up here, live with us. You don't pay any rent. You can work at the go-kart track, running the rental carts, and make an honest living, and we won't ever worry about where you're going, how long you're going. Because that's the other thing. You can't go get a job to support Road to Indy racing, because why, McDonald's is going to want to know, why are you taking off every Thursday, coming back Monday afternoon? Then next week you got to leave on Friday, and you won't be back till Tuesday. So this lifestyle is extremely hard to get a normal day job and life to build around it. But Chris Egger once said to me, he goes, well, where do you want to end up? Like, what's the A to B for you? And I said to him, in a brief moment of like odd wisdom that I've never really had much of, I go, I don't want to have an A to B. I don't want to say if I don't get there, it's a failure, because then you might miss door C, door D, door E. And damn, Levi, like, I wanted to grow up and be the next Tony Stewart. But if I wouldn't have seen the door over here with a microphone in it, I don't end up working for the guy. I don't end up working for you. I don't end up doing, if I would have just said, no, it's driving or nothing, or my life's a failure, I'm not in racing at all today, because I didn't have the talent. I damn sure didn't have the money, and I'd probably still be working for my dad's janitorial business instead of doing what I do now. I mean, I work for Kyle Larson and Brad Sweet, and I've worked for Tony, and I've worked for you. And so, yeah, my not to totally flip it into my deal, but I agree. And your philosophy is one I've had for way longer than I've known you, which is you can't just say, oh, there's a roadmap, and I'm going to follow what Levi did. I'm going to follow what Stewart did. I'm going to follow what Tony Elliott did. You got to do it your way, because if you do it their way, you're probably going to miss an opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. It's like I said, I think you've got to reserve the right that trajectory can change at any moment.
Yeah, well, thankfully the trajectory of that inflatable couch has stayed up. I'm getting better at inflating that thing. Man, thanks so much for talking.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's great to take a break, talk about some stuff from the past, and what I'm doing now. I appreciate you coming.
I appreciate you hanging out on the couch.